Thank you for viewing this YouTube archive of a Conscious Consumer Network broadcast. Please feel free to share it far and wide. Check out our weekly broadcast guide for weekly updates on scheduled broadcasts. Help keep us on the air by contributing to our network support fund. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or get in touch via email. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army.
Welcome to TLBTV, Eradicating Programmed Ignorance. And we do apologize for being 15 minutes late getting up and running, but we're doing a show whereby the show is being produced in Holland. My guest is in France, and I'm sitting in the heartland of America. So the fact that we can even do a show at all is a miracle. But we do have a great show for you today, but you're only going to have to listen to me rant for 45 minutes instead of 60 today, so everybody makes out, and that's a good thing. So today on Eradicating Programmed Ignorance, we proudly announce the official launch of the Liberty Beacon Project's newest website to our network. Europe Reloaded is a forum well past due when considering the scope and scale of what is transpiring in Europe, Brexit, and its global ramifications today. Whether we are discussing immigration, migration, global governance, political tyranny, perpetual warfare, or economic and even health issues, Europe, the European Union, and organizations such as NATO are in the forefront of what is making the news. Brexit is a massive outcry from the British common folk for equality and true representation, and its ramifications will reverberate across Europe and the world for a long time to come. In fact, we may have just witnessed the opening volley of a people's global uprising initiated from Britain and spreading quickly across Europe and beyond as you read this article, which is in the Conscious Consumer Network website and also on the Liberty Beacon website, and watch this show. My guest today is the newly appointed director of the new TLB project, which again is EuropeReloaded.com, and her name is Pam Barker. In my eyes, Pam was chosen because she is more than qualified to take on this task, not only because she was born and lived in this region, but also because she has traveled extensively both within the EU and out. Pam's qualifications as a teacher/instructor affords her the strength of both organization and knowledge. Being an individual who admittedly once held a very progressive liberal mindset, Pam's recent and in-depth foray into politics and the divisive cultures contained in Europe have led her to wake up to the fact that the left-right paradigm is basically a trap to enslave the masses to the benefit of only a privileged and elite caste. We are very proud and honored by her participation and dedication in this new project. So, who is Pam Barker? Pam's been an English teacher and instructor for most of her working life at both the high school and post-secondary levels. She's also put in some time as an administrator. We won't hold that against her. She started out life as a Brit, but spent most of her adult life in Canada, where she enjoyed enormously, and still regards it as her spiritual home. She also did a working stint in Hong Kong just after the handover of Hong Kong to China. She's now a resident of France and has morphed from an educator to a journalist now working for the Liberty Beacon Project. She's always been a news hound and a rather opinionated one. Gee, go figure that we would be attracted to someone like that. So this has been a very welcome change. She has come to realize that she's a truther and firmly rejects the propaganda and divisiveness of the traditional left-right political paradigm. How are you today, Pam?
I'm fine, thanks, Roger. Can you hear me?
I can, but you're going to have to speak up because as we talk about these technical difficulties and the distance between us, it seems that we cannot get more volume from you electronically than we are. So yell at us.
Okay, well, I'm fine, Rog. Thanks for the introduction. I've been glued to the television set for about 6 days now, and it's just been mind-blowing what's been happening on British television and other news channels as well. But basically, it's a constant stream of change and information and fear of real reporting, of real news. It's quite incredible.
Well, we do understand that in America, and you do a lot of scrutinizing what goes on in North America because it is from North America that a lot of what we suffer, as well as a lot of other things, do originate. And you realize, as much as anybody else, I know you do because I've seen you write about it, that we no longer trust our mainstream media. We no longer trust the paradigm of the media is always right and everything that the government says is parroted by this mainstream media. We look at Great Britain and we look at the people, and I've been lucky enough to live almost 6 years of my life in Great Britain. I love the people. I love the culture. I sincerely do. As a matter of fact, Scotland is my favorite place on the entire planet. But we look at this and we understand that at some point in time, a people's revolution, and I'm not talking about a violent revolution, but a people's revolution had to initiate somewhere. To me, the fact that we could be looking at a people's uprising, whether it starts out as a political movement, whether it starts out as we need to make our voice heard, doesn't really matter. But the fact that it happened in Great Britain, because the British are looking upon the EU as we have an unelected authoritarian administration that is basically running our lives, basically making our laws, basically making our rules, basically saying who can and can't live in our country. And we've had it. And regardless of what the lords or regardless of what anybody in government says in Great Britain, the people have a different mindset, and they have stepped up to say this. So the first thing I want to discuss before we jump into Brexit any deeper is you have just taken on the directorship of our newest project, which is Europe Reloaded. Europe Reloaded is well past the time that this project should have been launched, but we haven't been able to find somebody with your qualifications, your charisma, and your intellect. And yes, I mean everything I say. I never lie and I never exaggerate.
Trust me, I paid him.
So when you stepped up to tell me you would do this, it was the ultimate time for us to launch this project. I want you to get as close to your microphone as you can and say as loudly as you can, what are your goals for Europe Reloaded, please?
Whoa, that's a big one.
Synopsize it.
Well, I mean, eradicating programmed ignorance is your stated goal through the Liberty Beacon, but it's exactly the same with Europe Reloaded. We're looking behind the news, of course, but looking at certain topics that are not necessarily going to get a lot of traction in Europe and bring in, very, very importantly, a North American perspective to those issues, because there is an awareness in North America of like the globalist project, the globalists like Soros, the Rothschilds, etc., the international organizations that they run. And there isn't so much of awareness of that agenda behind what is going on in Europe. And I think that's a lack, frankly. So
what did you just do? Because all of a sudden I can hear you as clear as a bell.
I didn't do anything. No.
And now I can hardly hear you again. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Please continue because what you're saying is so apropos.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's got to be a fusion. I mean, at the moment, I guess we're catering to a North American audience from the European perspective, but it's not just trying to be relevant to those North American viewers. It's trying to put in something that isn't necessarily always there with the European perspective. They're really, well, like with the Brexit coverage, there's really been a lack of awareness of the bigger picture. Truly. I mean, I suppose you could say that about all mainstream media coverage, but there really isn't that bigger picture, a lot of which is coming from North American commentators.
What about your massive migration, immigration, and what we're seeing is a dilution of the European character, a dilution of the European culture. I'm not going to tell you that this is wrong. I'm not going to tell you that if somebody's bombing my house and I know 500 miles to the north, I can bring my family to a place that's relatively safe. And I'm not going to tell you that there aren't factions within that migration that don't necessarily have the best of intentions. All of this is part of the paradigm. But who's suffering this? Okay, not only are the migrants suffering, because in fact they are, but also the dilution of the culture, the groups of these migrants that don't necessarily have good in their heart, that are causing a lot of chaos, that are causing death and destruction, so on and so forth. You're looking at a Europe that I haven't seen since just before World War II.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I almost don't know where to begin with the topic of migration, because it's such a big thing from every angle. It really is a thing. We've had immigrants for years into European countries, into North American countries, but now it's a fashion, it's a trend. If you dare to say anything against it, you're labeled a racist, of course. Nobody in the media is really looking at the causes behind it. I mean, we've had General Wesley Clark go on record as saying, you know, Washington's going to bomb, what is it, 7 countries in 5 years or something like that.
Yes, and that was before 9/11, and 9/11 was the catalyst for the United States and its NATO allies to go in and do that.
Yeah, so we're not getting that questioning of why. Somebody said, I think it might have been Glenn Greenwald recently, somebody of that caliber said, if all these governments, like in Europe, etc., around the world, really care about immigrants, then stop going into their countries and bombing the hell out of them. And trying
My God, yes!
Yeah, so I mean, nobody's looking at it on that level. Immigration isn't just coming from a country that's traditionally getting the hell bombed out of it. I think I published an article the other day from Sputnik News, where in Ukraine now everybody wants in. Now, what is happening in Ukraine? Not a lot. It was a US-led coup. So they're under the aegis of the United States. It used to be a democracy. It's still on the surface is, but nothing's happening there except the economy is in a mess, and it's been in a mess for ages. So suddenly, why does everybody want in from Ukraine? Why is that a topic?
I would push back just a little bit on something you said. Although you're not wrong, I'm not saying you're wrong. You said it was a US-led coup. It was an oligarchical coup, which happens to be headquartered in the United States and running our government. Because if you put a vote to the American people, whether they want to bomb Syria, we've already stepped up once and forced Obama to back down from going in and bombing the hell out of Syria. We've done that, and that was several years ago. And if we were asked if we wanted American boots on the ground or we wanted to see Ukrainian citizens dying as a result of something that was sponsored via the United States, we would say no, and we would vote that down. But it's long past the point that America can claim anymore that it's a constitutional republic. Now, I've said this on several shows before, Pam, and I think you'll agree with me. Princeton stepped up in 2014, the last part of 2014, and published a study. This is one of the most acclaimed universities in the United States throughout our entire history, stepped up in conjunction with 3 other universities and said the United States cannot ever again claim to be ruled in a democratic process. The United States is now ruled by an oligarchy. This is Princeton saying this. Who are we to doubt Princeton? But people like you and I, we knew this long before Princeton said it. Please
Right.
continue.
Well, yeah, excuse me. Just on the topic then of immigration, now with Turkey, there are deals being cut with Turkey. There's a lot of news going on with Turkey right now. Suddenly they want in. Yeah, we'll trade you this, but can all our citizens now have these visas to come in? So it's like entry into Europe is a thing. It's not just from it, you know, like I've got Canadian friends, dear friends, but they think, well, it's a group of Syrian refugees who are in a desperate plight. It's that and so much more. And it's not just from those countries, it's from a whole raft of countries who don't necessarily have a war going on. So it's humongous. If you're here, I mean, for example, if you're in France, you know, you've got immigrants coming in different countries at different points. But of course, we've got Schengen. Everybody can just come in everywhere.
Would you agree? Would you agree with me? And I want your honest opinion on this because I know what my research tells me, but I look at it, as you would say, from a North American perspective. I've spent a lot of time in Europe, but that doesn't mean that it qualifies me to have a European perspective. Would you agree with me that a lot of the countries in the European Union and in Europe itself have socialist-leaning governments? Okay. This is pretty much ingrained in a lot of the governments, and I'm not saying communist, I'm saying socialist, okay, and leaning governments. If you take a look at countries like Syria, countries like Iraq, countries like where these immigrants or these migrants may be coming from, there is nothing or very little supplied to these populations if they don't take care of themselves. What they look at up over the hill, up over the rise, the European Union, are countries that go overboard by most other nations' aspects to take care of their citizens and to provide for them at least a basic living quality. So don't you think that this is part of the reason you are attracting across Europe so many migrants?
I've got to qualify that because
please do.
A lot of European countries have had those social programs. And according to writers like Mike Lofgren, that was the West's way of saying, look, capitalism is a really good thing after the Second World War. So you've got communism in competition at that time. And a lot of Western countries were very generous. It doesn't mean they're socialist and left wing. Okay, I've got to make that distinction because right now we've had David Cameron's government is in the second term. We had Thatcher before that. Along the way, you get a lot of those social programs and those social gains destroyed. Netherlands has had its healthcare system privatized. The one in the UK is that close to getting full privatization. So you've got right-wing governments right now, quite a few of them. But just because they're still providing social programs historically, which, by the way, people do like. I mean, I think universal healthcare it rocks. But I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you said. But it's just, you've just got to make that distinction between a right-wing government, which is still a capitalist society that offers a useful social program, or maybe not, but people in these countries generally like them. Okay, so I just want to clarify what that means to be socialist.
Well, if you take and you consider that even in Cameron's government, okay, or even in the Netherlands, or even anywhere else where you're seeing the privatization of, let's go to the nations where you're not seeing the privatization, where you're seeing the massive social programs. And in some people's eyes, okay, this is good. As long as we still get to vote on whether we want things or not. The fact that we have these massive social programs that take care or give a basic safety net to our citizens, this is something every country should have the right to vote on. Their citizens should have the right to pick and choose if this is what they wish. But if you stop and look, even the massive social programs, where do they get their medical supplies? Where do they get there? So on and so forth. It all leads back to the oligarchs who supply everything, even the socialist programs require. So to believe that if you have a socialist government, again, not a communist government, they're two totally different things. If you have a socialist government, then the oligarchs are not involved. Bullshit. Nothing could be further from the truth. But people do, especially us, what we consider to be us North Americans or us Yanks, we do consider a socialist nation to be more divorced from the oligarchical rule. Not only is that wrong, but I would tend to say that the EU is a hell of a lot closer to tucking itself into the New World Order than North America is at this point. Again, your opinion on that?
Well, it's 28, almost 27 countries who basically are corporate controlled and they don't know it. From Brussels, we go to our ballot box.
It's not even controlled by vote. It's dictation.
It absolutely is, yes. And I didn't even know this. I had this automatic prejudice towards the EU, just like millions and millions of other people. We have this historical view that it's protected. And probably at some time it was. It is totally not protected now at all. You've got this, like, you know, the iceberg metaphor. You've got the surface, which says all the right things. We're inclusive of transgender people, racial divides, blah, blah, blah. We've got all this good stuff that's been said for years, which leads people to suspect. And we live in countries where we do have social programs. So we have this cotton wool kind of feel about the EU. But when you look at the treatment of Greece since the financial crisis, then then Greece in early 2015 voted in Tsipras's party specifically on an anti-austerity platform. And then since then, we've seen Tsipras have to do an about face. We could say, well, he's a weak man. He's not. He's had so much pressure from Brussels, from Germany, from the IMF, that they've completely sold out those people. They've put predatory lending on Greeks. They've put them in a situation that Varoufakis never wanted. And those poor people now are losing all their social programs as part of a leverage of paying back this debt that they've had imposed on them, as Varoufakis said, the largest debt in human history. They have been so screwed, it's horrible. And then Varoufakis said in an interview with Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! That basically France is the real target. We are heavy on bureaucracy here, but since I did a little piece on this for the Liberty Beacon, but basically France has been leveraged since 2012.
Yes.
Got in. And every year it's been promising to cut its budget deficit, blah, 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 blah. Finally, we had the Macron law. Macron is a young politician who was a Rothschild's banker, and now he wants to do some kind of champagne socialist party. And I'm saying to left-wing friends, don't trust this guy. But he was brought in, unelected, by the Hollande government that campaigned on anti-austerity. And now it's had its arm pulled behind its back. It did the Macron law, which was a way of sort of rendering neoliberally friendly parts of French culture. It was a grab bag of changes, a law. And then this year, which is why we've had so many protests of people on the street, we've had the El Khomri law, which is aimed at the big fat red book that we have here called the Code du Travail, the labor code, basically. And yeah, I mean, you can argue it's cumbersome, it's very protective of people's jobs, it creates additional problems, but it's the French bloody choice to be like. And they are not having a choice in how they run things. But the problem is, there's evidence to show this it's coming from Brussels. But, you know, Valls and Hollande can't say to everybody, look, guys, we really have no power on the big issues. Sorry, but we're having to do this. Otherwise, we could end up like Greece. And people are not understanding this Greece-France connection. And just to add one more thing, just to keep the ducks in a row, we've got the free trade agreement. Hang on, I'm going to get this wrong, TTIP, yeah. And there's massive protest here, especially coming from the UK and Germany about this. So basically, ordinary citizens are having to fight their governments not to do this massive free trade deal. It isn't free trade at all, but it's just open season for the corporations to override national laws.
Yeah, a loss of sovereignty.
And in the process, when you have your laws destroyed, you lose your sovereignty.
Well, I don't know if if any member of the EU could actually at this point lay claims to a very strong sovereignty. But let's take this a little bit further, okay? We're talking about austerity measures. We're talking about massive debt. We're talking about massive debt that's being incurred all across Europe, okay? We're looking at what may be the collapse of several monetary systems. Okay, why are you not hearing about the one nation out of 196 nations on this planet that owns 30%, 1/3 of the entire global debt? Since Obama jumped into office, the national debt in the United States that has accumulated under his watch almost doubles what every other president in the history of this country accumulated. We are sitting just shy of $20 trillion worth of debt. We have over 1/3 of the total global national debt. And what are these fiat currency kingpins, these global elitists? What is their solution to this? Crank up the presses. We're going to flood the market with another $1.7 trillion and bring the stocks back up. Oh, okay, all you've done is devaluate every currency that's tied to the petrodollar, every currency that's tied to the reserve currency, global reserve currency, and you've devaluated the American dollar. It is inevitable that the US currency is going to fail. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when it goes down, it takes every fiat currency on this planet with it. Now, why aren't people in Europe? And this is why you're there, my friend, because these are the things you talk about. You not only talk about Europe, but you talk about the influence that Mac Daddy USA has on your lives over there. We are going to destroy the economic system globally, not if, but when. Why aren't Europeans protesting America? I got to tell you something. I love America more than anybody you can imagine. And I am fighting very hard to see the American people take back this country. And I would love nothing more than to see people in the EU protesting our government. I'd get on a freaking plane and go over there and jump in line.
I think the protest, if there is a protest against Washington, it's more likely to come from free trade agreements or from
as it should,
military, like NATO. But look, I mean, the potential collapse of the petrodollar and massive inflation, that's not hitting the news, right? Except the independent media. And even the stuff with NATO, that's buried unless you go into the independent media. And
the Liberty Beacon talks about it.
Yeah, we're this close to World War III, right? Where NATO's piling up its troops around the Russian border, claiming Russian aggression as evidence, and that's another story you're not getting.
Why don't you need to stop using that door you have into the back of my head, because listening to you talk, I see myself with longer hair and glasses that aren't tinted. Also, you're better looking than I am, but we won't go there. The point here is the reason why you were asked to direct, and for anybody who doesn't know, this is the director of Europe Reloaded, not me. Okay, I will consult with her if there is something I can do to help this project. Yes, it's part of the Liberty Beacon project, but this is run by and directed by this lady you are looking at on your screen, not myself. We work together in a partnership. This is not the EU. I'm not a dictatorial administrator. So why? But you are sitting there because you are so connected with all of these things that the Liberty Beacon Project rants against, but you do it from that European perspective, and you do it so damn well. You do.
I just wish I had more economic knowledge. That's a real lack.
Oh, I can get that over to you. We're partners.
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
Just to tell you, because this was a story that came out today on the currency side of things, the economy side of things. I trust that they're serious about saying goodbye to Britain in the UK. Those are the signs. Come on, get out quickly. But anyway, in that spirit, if we can believe it, Junker's quickly closing the doors. He's rushing off to the DIY store, getting his nails and his planks, and he's hammering up the windows and the doors. That's what it feels like. And on the topic of currencies now, he's aiming at 8 countries in the EU, I'm sorry, who still are not using the euro.
Yeah, you know,
on their own currency and their autonomy with their currency.
Whoa. We do have a website in the UK which has been on hold for about 2 months because the individual who runs that website has had personal issues. I got a call from him today, from Stephen Cook, and he will be starting to populate and promote the website again. I foresee the two of you becoming close friends because he's not only a very good writer, but this gentleman writes satire beyond anything you can imagine. He can take anything and tell you the story and give it to you boldly, and do it with such satire that at the same time you're in shock, you're chuckling. So I expect you and Stephen will be very good friends. He will focus on the on Great Britain. You will focus on the EU, and now that might even be more important as we see Great Britain pull away from the EU. And your website is Europe Reloaded, and his website is Go Forward Together TLB UK. So, but I do see you separated by a small channel, the English channel, but there are a lot of crossover effects between the two.
Yes, there are.
There are. So we only have a few minutes left. I said we'd get back into the Brexit idea. I really would like your opinion on, I started out by saying this could very well be the start of a people's revolution, and I'm speaking of a nonviolent revolution, whereby people decide we've had enough of the administrators who hide in their big mansions and tell us how we're going to live and the austerity we're going to live in. And we might have seen, because we've seen articles lately from Texas saying, is Texas next? We've seen articles from Australia lately saying, is Australia next? We've seen articles from Sweden lately saying, is Sweden next? So have we seen the UK kick off something billions, not millions, of human beings across this planet have been waiting to see who's going to cast the first stone? Have we seen that, Pam?
I think it's psychologically very, very important that this has happened. You've got to be aware that people are still saying, hang on a minute, as long as Article 50 is not kicked off, there's going to be less and less chance of it being kicked off. So I was rather depressed to read that today. So people are, like on social media, kind of saying, come on, we voted for leave, let's get out. But I think whatever happens with that, it's been psychologically important that people who are probably the least likely to make a noise and kick up, and I'm talking of the heartlands of the UK, the industrial heartlands, who have perfectly good reason to want to be out of the EU, they've crossed that line and said, screw it. And they're not that militant. I mean, I saw a piece on CNN today from my home city, and people were just very nice, very articulate, very balanced, and said, look, we have nothing. EU's done nothing for us. By the way, the EU is supposed to contribute back into various countries with money and subsidies for poor areas. And Cornwall and Wales has got that, but where I come from, holy crap, it's awful. So one person said in a very balanced way, look, the EU's done nothing for us. Another person said 2 terms with the Conservatives, they've done nothing. Another woman said, we're fed up of being controlled from a distance, and then just walked away in a very calm manner. Another guy said, without being racist, he said, look, we've had a lot of immigration into this area, Eastern European migrants, and he said, now we have a gang problem, so we don't feel safe. And I didn't see all this dumb, stupid, uneducated, racist person that they keep talking about in the media. So for these very balanced people who've been so disenfranchised for decades to have crossed that line and said, we've had enough. And today, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You say disenfranchised, and I agree. But one quick thing. I know, like I said, I've spent 6 years in Great Britain, and I absolutely love the country. But like most people say about the United States, I love the people, not the government. Okay? I love the culture, not the government. But we look back all the way past the Magna Carta, all the way past to the 11th century, where the British people stood up and told the monarchs, when a monarch was stupid enough to make basically what we call an executive order today, and the people rose up and said, that's enough. Okay, we ain't gonna have that. And then we go to the Magna Carta, and then we move forward. Hasn't it always been, okay? And then, yeah, the United States was a Johnny come lately, but we had our own moment in the sun. But all of this, and even before that, we had France. Okay, from Europe, liberté. From the UK, freedom from tyranny. We have seen the British people stand up over and over and over again when they've had their backs pushed up against the wall and say, we don't give a damn what you say. It don't work for us anymore. Are we seeing the British people absolutely fed up with the oligarchical rule, with the dictatorial rule from administrators far, far off who have nothing to lose?
Absolutely. And against a media campaign, plus the murder of Joe Cox, which in my opinion was very suspicious, against all the wave of propaganda. I mean, it was huge. It was a huge wave of propaganda that was going on in the media. And yeah, they just calmly come up, the middle and go, sorry, we're out. It was pretty impressive. And I wonder if actually the results could have been higher, the percentage of the vote. But anyway, that's
if you don't think that the vote was messed with, then I'll send you about 50 articles showing you that any democratic country on this planet, the vote is rigged. But what the reality could be is it could have been 65, 70%, and 50-something% is thrown at the people in their face to say this barely squeaked by. Okay? I don't believe it for a second. I believe...
I have no evidence.
Okay. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to wrap up, because we're down to about 4 minutes, and I will shut up and let you say anything you wish. Let's talk about what you want to see from Europe Reloaded, because I believe, as important as our flagship website, the Liberty Beacon, is, Europe Reloaded stands side by side as a partner website within the project, simply because if it's not coming from America, it's coming from Europe.
Wow.
So,
well, it's still a fledgling thing. I'm still kind of finding my feet and finding our position, because every day I'm.
Well, what do you want?
I would like to see us grow into, and making a partnership with Steve would be awesome, where we are, we're presenting a unique voice with a unique perspective. I'd love to see us, by the way, this is way down the road, but get into multiple languages as a site. Sorry,
I've already got that in the works.
Okay, I'm sure you have, but because at the moment, of course, we're just into the English language group. And, the UK is pretty well served, by sites and, alternative groups. Some awesome people there. And I'd like to be making, connections with those people. And around in Europe as well, maybe. The problem is the language, of course. I'm not multilingual. So making those connections with maybe some other English-speaking groups and sites would be absolutely awesome, where we can get a network of news going. And really start getting that awareness that we can bring, Liberty Beacon can bring.
You have 3 websites over in that area. You have Middle East Rising, you have Go Forward Together, and you have Europe Reloaded. And yes, networking them together will be something you and I will discuss, because this will probably fall under your realm and directorship as well. I hate like hell to do this, man, because I know we got 15 minutes late start. I absolutely adore you. I adore the things you do, the things you say, and the fact that you came from a liberal perspective and I came from an ultra neocon.
That's an insult.
And I come from an ultra neocon perspective, and we've met in the middle to do what we're doing today, to pop the left-right paradigm.
Before we close, because I really urge everybody out there to really question your basic core values, and then find what the parties say about them, and see how they muzzle you. because I can't go to the left-wing side of things exclusively anymore, because there's just too much beyond the nice values. There's like a shutting down. There's like a naivety of looking further and saying, hang on, is there something else going on here? And that's never done. So guys, just question the paradigm, please. We've been manipulated.
Okay. I really wish we had more time, and you will come on again. You will. And for everybody listening, please do me a favor. Go to Conscious Consumer Network. Support them. It doesn't matter whether you can give $5, $10, $100. These are the people that make this show possible, and they make shows possible across this planet. Shows like this are seen in over 140 countries. Please donate whatever you can to Conscious Consumer Network. This has been TLB, Eradicating Programmed Ignorance on TLBTV, brought to you by Conscious Consumer Network. We appreciate all of you. Have a very pleasant evening. And thanks again, Pam.
Thank you, Raj.
Conscious Consumer Network was designed to create a live broadcast TV network for free and independent media, and has been live on the air since the 1st of January 2015. CCN gets millions of minutes watched every month and is viewed in over 140 countries, having produced around 1,400 shows and counting.
And you know, it's very hard to get on the mainstream media, of course, the corporate media that's getting tighter and more monopolized and more restrictive for any outside information.
The live broadcasts are free to view, and all shows are archived in high definition on YouTube. CCN plays host to a stellar team of broadcasters and producers, all of whom rely on the network to get their message and information out to the world. CCN has continued to evolve, constantly seeking to create greater media usage and opportunities for both broadcasters and viewers, including supporting projects such as the newly launched consciouscommunities.org, a brand new social media platform that is free to use and has been created for those dedicated to the pursuit of freedom, justice, peace, and sustainability to come together and co-create the solutions to a better world. Due to the constant heavy usage, we are in need of replenishing and replacing of key hardware and infrastructural wear and tear. This includes the fixing and replacing of parts of the live broadcast equipment system, as well as increasing storage capacities for content and projects. Without this, CCN and its affiliate projects will simply not be able to continue. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded project, and it is up to you all to keep CCN on the air. Support our funding drive with a donation or become a monthly pledger. We thank you all for supporting free and independent media.